Hi, Richard Moore from EightStepStartup here. I want to speak to you about YouTube and getting this right. Some of the people I have worked with have started putting YouTube posts on because they want to be much more abundant with their content. And there's a lot of you out there actually who have contacted me just to ask why is it that I'm not getting quite as much traction on my YouTube videos as I wanted to. And the thing is, for a lot of you, you recognize that, especially if you are the product, maybe you're some kind of coach, or you feel like your business is online and you are at the face of the company, you need to have a message come across. You recognize the importance of YouTube, but the problem is that you're almost being too focused on just a message with the YouTube's video itself. And what it means is that, yes, there's some salient points in there, and that's great once you've got traction with a really big audience. But what you find is that if you want to get people grabbing people's interest from the very start, so when you're just starting out on YouTube, you want to get people going, wow, I've not seen this guy before, but I really like his stuff. One way of doing it is volume. Sure, you can be there all the time, and that's one way of kind of just being in people's faces a lot. However, if you can combine that with a special way of telling these messages, then it's an opportunity for you to be a much more engaging, and for people to be able to relate to you as well. So what I'm talking about here is the actual delivery of your message and how you do it. So if, for example, I had some great business idea or way in which I can boost traffic to my website or whatever, it could be anything, and I want to deliver a message through YouTube on that, I could just say, hi everyone, I've got a great idea or tip for YouTube, and that may work. But if you were to take some time and spend it maybe telling a bit more of a story around it, then it's been proven that as human beings operate, we'll actually get a lot more from it. A lot more will stick as well. So if in terms of evolutionary psychology, if you understand how people actually learn from each other, and how in terms of culture, how people pass down information, much of it is done through storytelling. That's something that we've been used to over thousands of years, and that's how human beings pass things on. So it's something that we're innately used to and ready for, in fact. So the problem a lot of people have is that, and it's recognizable in this kind of age that we're in, that there's a craving for knowledge, but often without going around the houses. And sure, you've got to get to your point, but the problem is that things don't stick as well as if you spend your time over the actual point and focus on it a bit more like a story. So if you look at one of my top books, which is Contagious by Jonah Berger, he talks about his STEPS approach, STEPPS, and each of those, I won't go through here, I've done a post on it in the past. But the idea is with STEPS, essentially, he's analysed the things that make messages, and specifically in a lot of his studies, YouTube videos, go viral. And so what he's analysed is the things about these messages that make human beings want to pass them on, because word of mouth is a very good way of kind of giving strength to a story, and giving what he calls social currency to a story. And the S at the end of STEP stands for stories. He suggests that if you have a story around your message, you'll have a much more effective way of passing on information. So it doesn't have to be huge, long stories, but just simply anecdotes. That's a really important way of making your message real. So if you're telling someone about, a great technique you've found to make £1,000 a day, if that's the kind of marketing you want to do, then great. But what you'll notice is that people most effective at that have got some kind of backstory behind it. And when I was in touch with John Hughes recently, he's the sales director for Red Bull. He's over here in the UK actually. What he said to me was that he really advocates as one of the most important things in sales, telling stories, to really make your message clear and get it through to people in a simplistic way. So that's what John Hughes thinks, and if you go a bit further, you'll see that in fact most people who are passing on their message, if you look at autobiographies as well, they don't just say, oh, I made it big, I became very successful. There's a lot of backstory because it makes you buy into that person. And actually, .com Secrets, which is a book by Russell Brunson, if any of you work online, which you all should do, is really important. Read this one. I think he's really nailed a lot of points about getting people through to your page and getting them to pay attention to you. He also advocates boosting your image and building your image and personal brand around a number of features, including as kind of a backstory and some kind of I suppose a character which you must represent. And this isn't lying about who you are. It's just simply giving the audience a human edge. And the psychologists out there who make a lot of money from this kind of thing are fully aware of this, and you need to look no further than right in front of us in popular culture. You've got the likes of X Factor and things like that, and they all operate in the same way. X Factor isn't just people turning up and singing. Half of that show is all the backstory. You've got the misty, defocused flashbacks to when they lost their dog and they were so upset, and they had personal tragedy in their lives. And the idea is that it gets people to buy into them, and for many, especially those of you who are aware of this technique, it's actually quite cringy. But for the majority of people who watch programs like this, they really buy into it. And there's often, I often think to myself, come on, let's just get on with the music, because actually it's worth watching for that. But what they're doing is they're saying, well, let's stop a minute, let's go through this person, let's build him up and make a story around them, and it will mean the audience really thinks, oh, that's someone I can relate to. And if it's someone you can relate to, then it's someone you spend more time feeling a connection with. So one of the reasons, for example, why I do my video from off my car is because it feels like you're with me, and we're just normal day-to-day people, because actually pretty much all of my clients are normal day-to-day people. There's a few clients I have who are very, very wealthy and who use me for other reasons, and even on my course as well, I'm not doing anything flashy, just sitting in my office and we're talking about the content of the course, because I want someone to feel when they're engaging with me that they're really able to relate to me. But also you'll notice that there are stories there as well. So bearing that in mind, you need to think, well, if I'm going to do a successful YouTube post, I need to put some kind of stories in. And a good example of someone who's very prominent with video online is Ty Lopez, who has a very broad following already. Within the last year, he's absolutely rocketed. And there's always the drip feeding of information, such as I spent some time on my mum's couch, and I had $47 in my bank account, and all these little things are dropped in regularly because it makes people think, oh man, I can relate to that. Otherwise you just see success, come and be like me, success, and there's no kind of there's no bridging the two. So the world that his clients are in, the people who want to have a good life, and the world that he's in, there needs to be some link between the two. And it doesn't have to be huge long stories, but it needs to be anecdotes or at least examples of what you're talking about, and that again makes things really real. And if you can do that right, then the videos that you're posting on YouTube will suddenly seem to come to life a bit more. And actually, I think the final way to kind of explain this, as many people understand, is if you're looking at how books are written these days. I'm not talking about novels, but factual books. It's the same thing, and the general premise or feeling a lot of people have is that this is a general singular point or there is a singular idea or thesis in a book that could be written in a paragraph, and in fact is often covered in an introduction or conclusion, and the rest of the book is that anecdotal information, stories and different angles on the same idea that really pad it out, and that's what adds an additional 250 pages typically. So I hope that's of value. Think carefully. Have you got a good message? Good. Well, now how can you relate it to any stories you might have and some real world situations? And as a result, people are going to feel a lot more able to relate to either you or to your message. So speak to you soon.